It seems to be that we all know what the Conservative election strategy is going to be, given a lot of our papers tend to lean more towards the right, churning up lines from people like Foreign Secretary David Lammy calling for a closer relationship with the EU, Sadiq Khan demanding new visa rules with the EU and saying a return to a customs union should be on the table, Hilary Benn saying the EU would breathe a sigh of relief if Labour won the election, and the age-old Tory favourite, of course, is SNP leader Humza Yousaf inviting Starmer for a cosy chat. Everyone can remember the 2014, was it
2015 election. We were followed round. I was there. We spent an entire election campaign.
Of course,
we followed round by young Tories dressed up in Alex Salmond masks.
But
he's not even in the SNP anymore.
But somehow Starmer is going to have to break the back of these narratives and these arguments from the Conservative Party, and talking about the National Trust isn't doing it.
Well, look, I think on the SNP, this is absolute grandstanding by Humza Yousaf. It's very hard not to call him Humza Useless, which is his nickname. He knows that the SNP are in real trouble. He launched his general election campaign last week by focusing on the 6 Tory seats, not the scores of seats that he's going to lose, the SNP are going to lose to Labour. Under Anas Sarwar, Scottish Labour is revived and is set to take a whole slew of seats in its traditional heartlands back from the SNP. There is no chance of a coalition with anybody. So Humza Yousaf can keep dreaming and the Tories can keep trying to put up a paper tiger. In 2015, it was pertinent because it looked like we were going to have a hung parliament. I remember every day of that general election campaign. It looked like we were going to have a hung parliament and that Ed Miliband was going to rely on other people.
Where's the Edstone?
I believe it's rubble now, as it should be.
It was found
I was there, but it was above my pay grade.
It was found about 6 months later in some scrapyard in East London, lying there.
They should have put the late publishers sold on eBay and made a bit of cash.
A testament to Ed's shattered dreams.
And mine, Kevin, mine.
And yours, Matthew, of
but
course.
Matthew is exactly right in saying that, because it would be, there's no need for Labour to enter a coalition with the SNP. It would do nothing for the Labour Party.
Labour wants to smash them to hell.
Well, absolutely. So, obviously, the SNP, let's remind everyone, are a left-leaning party. Labour are maybe less left-leaning party than the SNP, but they're still towards the left of the political spectrum. It would be nonsensical for Labour to enter a coalition with the SNP when they are already doing so much better than them. It would just be not
absolutely.
useful.
It's a moment in 2015. Scottish Labour was its moment of absolute weakness. Now it's at a moment of growing strength.
Yeah. How many seats do we think that Labour will get in Scotland?
Up to 25.
Wow, really?
And how much do you think the sort of Brexit debate is going to be relevant in this election? Because it's obviously sort of kicked about the place. We've got a few by-elections coming up. One, of course, in Peter Bone's old constituency of Wellingborough, very Brexity constituency. If Blackpool South happens as well, another one for eyes on when it comes to sort of a more Brexit-leaning electorate. And Sir Keir Starmer himself, of course, was shadow Brexit minister calling for a second referendum. Is it the case that that is still very much on people's minds, or do you think that has slipped down the run order, so to speak, when it comes to people's priorities this year?
In terms of the general electorate and the public, it probably has slipped down a little bit. That's not to say it's totally out of the picture whatsoever. And lots of opposition parties to Labour will be wanting to keep that big fat question mark over Keir Starmer's head about whether or not he wants to rejoin the EU. Now, he keeps saying that he absolutely doesn't want to rejoin the EU. But of course, when we just look at his history, people will still question that. He really advocated another referendum. And even last week, he said in an interview that he stayed in Jeremy Corbyn's cabinet purely to kind of have some sway over Labour's position with Brexit. So there are still lots of question marks and lots of people doubting what Keir Starmer's real legitimate sway there is.
That's the great thing about your boss, isn't it? Or the man that you so admire, Keir Starmer. He has opinions, and if you don't like them, he has others.
Oh, cynicism, such cynicism.
Well, yeah, rather warranted, I do believe. This guy, so what does he stand for?
On the EU...
what do you stand for, Keir? What do you want me to stand for?
I predict you will see a big poster during the general election campaign with we will not be joining the EU, and Keir Starmer with a big marker pen signing it like Tony Blair used to sign pledges on tax in every election, because Labour will not, Britain will not join the EU under Labour. Sadiq Khan, who is facing his own very difficult re-election battle in May, is grandstanding in an unhelpful way about things that are nothing to do with him, and he should concentrate on governing London and not on talking about EU policy, which is the behest of the Keir Starmer as the leader.
I love a bit of a Sadiq Khan attack.
We're with you there, Matthew, all the way. Why does he do this?
Because he wants to keep the Liberal left vote in London, the Metro elite vote on. But I mean, the Metro elite people, as they may be classed, want safer streets, and public transport that works as much as anybody.
Just on the subject of Brexit, I just go back to the most absurd election campaign in history, the 2016 Theresa May versus Jeremy Corbyn, strong and stable.
It was absurd.
And you basically had an ardent Remainer under Theresa May, fighting her election campaign based upon delivering Brexit, and an ardent Brexiteer in the form of Jeremy Corbyn fighting his election campaign on a second referendum. I mean, this is it completely ruined politics forever.
It was ridiculous, wasn't it?
It was absolutely ludicrous. But I mean, Labour will be absolutely clear on not rejoining the EU. It will, though. It will, though, have sensible things. Like at the moment, we're giving hundreds of millions to the French, and they're doing nothing about stopping the small boats. So what Hilary Benn said is that there's likely to be constructive attitude towards a new Labour government, a bit of goodwill, which is when we saw, for example, in the last Labour government, got the Sangatte camp closed in Calais.
Blimey, you should see what Macron's up to in France. That man's more right-wing than Marine Le Pen these days. Yeah. Honestly, it's crazy.
And now he's got a schoolboy in as Prime Minister, so that's useful, isn't it?
I mean, would you have him on Desert Island Discs? No, he's too young.
Give him another year. But that 2016 election, you're so right. And
it's
remember when she used to say, "Oh, Theresa, poor old Theresa," every 3 seconds, strong and stable, strong. And she came off some TV interview and said to her aides, because there's some friends of mine were working for BBC then, and they said, apparently she went, I'm constantly saying strong and stable, and I feel so stupid saying it all the time. And somebody said, "You think?"
I mean, do you know that I remember on the One Show on BBC? Then she said, "What's the naughtiest thing you've ever done?" It's run through a cornfield. I think that was the moment.
Yeah,
that was the moment we thought that she maybe seems a little aloof by the people.
She needs to amend that story. Is run through a cornfield and then I set fire to it. Make you more electable, Theresa. So there you are.